What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about here on a daily basis. We got two really major things here for you guys in this video. And one we'll start with really could be the start of World War III. No jokes aside, dead serious. I'll show you and I'll let you hear directly from President Biden. Here we go. We'll start with this first because it's as major as it gets. Okay. You can see here deadly Russian missile strike in Poland risks dangerous escalation. Now remember that Poland is a member of NATO, so is the USA. And this is a major cause for concern. I'll show you why here. There's articles in the NATO treaty that says that any attack on any NATO member or any NATO country shall be considered an attack against all NATO countries. Basically, a declaration of war against all NATO countries. And the treaty says that if any NATO country is attacked and they consider it an actual attack, it's a declaration of war. It was last invoked following the 9/11 terrorist attacks on the U.S. So here's what happened.
Tessa? Scott, Polish officials say their president, Duda, is speaking to President Biden on the phone. Polish officials say they are assessing whether they need to consult with other countries under Article 4 of its treaty with NATO. And Poland confirms it is ramping up its military readiness. A government spokesperson said after top leaders just finished an emergency meeting, they say 2 Polish citizens died in an explosion. NBC News still cannot confirm reports by the Associated Press that 2 Russian missiles landed in Poland, killing 2 people. A senior administration official says something hit Poland, but it's unclear what it was or whether it was indeed a Russian weapon. The State Department calls the reports incredibly concerning and says right now they are being investigated.
We have seen these reports out of Poland. And are working with the Polish government and our NATO partners to gather more information. We can't confirm the reports or any of the details at this time.
Russia's defense ministry denies reports that Russian missiles hit Polish territory, and a number of NATO nations are now voicing support for Poland, with officials vowing they will help their NATO ally defend its territory. It is an ongoing situation here, Scott. We've got tabs on it.
Now, of course, Russia literally denies almost everything. They'll shoot rockets at a hospital or an apartment building and deny it. They literally denied that they were going to invade Ukraine and then invaded Ukraine a few days later. So they deny pretty much everything, even when they're going to do it a few days later. So, here's what President Biden had to say. Take a listen.
Thanks for being here. As you saw, I just met with the leaders of NATO and the G7 and talked about the latest events in Europe. And I briefed them on my discussions with President Duda of Poland, as well as NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg. And we agreed to support Poland's investigation into the explosion in rural Poland near the Ukrainian border, and I'm going to make sure we figure out exactly what happened. Our sympathy goes out to apparently 2 people were killed, and then we're going to collectively determine our next step as we investigate and proceed. There was total unanimity among the folks at the table. And we also discussed the latest series of Russian missile attacks, which are continuing the brutality and inhumanity that they've demonstrated throughout this war against Ukrainian cities and civilian infrastructures. And they've been totally unconscionable, what they're doing. Totally unconscionable. And the moment when the world had come together at the G20 to urge de-escalation, Russia continues to, has chosen to escalate in Ukraine while we're meeting. I mean, There were scores and scores of missile attacks into western Ukraine. We support Ukraine fully in this moment, and we have since the start of this conflict, we're going to continue to do whatever it takes to give them the capacity to defend themselves.
Mr. President, is it too early to say whether this missile was fired from Russia?
There is preliminary information that contests that. I don't want to say that till we completely investigate, but it's unlikely in the minds of the trajectory that it was fired from Russia. But we'll see. We'll see.
Unlikely, sir?
Mr. President, is Poland suggested invoking Article 4 or 5 from NATO, sir?
The success is we're going to probably have a meeting of the ambassadors. So that looks like we're going to go to next. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Yeah, so you can see here where the Poland city was attacked. It was actually 15 miles over the border of Poland. So we will have to wait and see what comes of this. But you heard President Biden say he's not sure if it is a missile from Russia, but we have had several Russian missile attacks lately. Also, what is key to note here is that 15 miles may seem like a lot, but remember here that the majority of these missiles are being fired all the way from Russia and Russian territory, like way over here by Russia. Okay, so for it to miss by like 15 miles might not be that unlikely, because look at how far these missiles have to go. So, I mean, you can let me know your thoughts here. I mean, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what they say here, or what the investigation is going to say. If it's just a one-off, do they actually want to? Does NATO actually want to say, okay, this is the start of World War III? Was this just an accident? Was this a misplaced missile? Or does Russia have a death wish to literally start World War III? Because remember here that, and the reason I say that is because if they fired an intentional missile to Poland and intentionally attacked a NATO country, just over the line here. I mean, remember here that Russia is being driven out of Ukraine here, literally like week by week right now. Of course, it's still a major battle here. I mean, it's a major battle, but Ukraine has been taking back thousands of miles here of territory that they once lost. I mean, you can see the headline here. Just a few days ago, Ukraine war celebration as Kyiv takes back key city of Kherson. Really one of the largest cities, if not the largest city, that Russia had occupied, and Ukraine has now taken it back. Kherson was the only regional capital taken by Russia after February's invasion. The retreat has been seen as one of the biggest setbacks of the war, and Russia has retreated from there fully. Moscow has admitted that 30,000 personnel has been taken out of the area, as well as around 5,000 pieces of military hardware, weaponry, and other assets as they've retreated out of that city. The White House hailed it as an extraordinary victory, but if you got to think here, if Russia's having a hard time with just Ukraine, imagine if NATO, 30 other countries, including the US, were to now be involved in this war. I mean, Russia wouldn't stand a chance, but Russia has 6,000 nuclear weapons. Now, so does the US. But nobody wants a nuclear weapon exchange. If Russia even uses one nuclear weapon, it's an absolutely catastrophic nightmare. I mean, it's not something we want to happen. I mean, think about World War II, nuclear weapon. First of all, if Russia even used a single nuclear weapon in Ukraine, I mean, stock markets around the world would collapse. 50% of retirees have money in stock markets, 401ks, IRAs, pensions. Stock markets around the world would literally like shut down and collapse. And not only that, but imagine if they shot nuclear weapons at the US. I mean, if the US and NATO were involved in the war, I mean, they could literally do that. I mean, remember that the US and Alaska are like literally a few miles apart. California is not that far on the West Coast, and neither is Hawaii. So, like, this is not something that we want to even happen. Ukraine is winning the war right now on their own. So, I mean, you guys let me know what you think. I'll keep you updated. Next up, former President Donald Trump has officially announced he is going to run for president with the Republican Party here in 2024 in a very long speech. Here's some of what he had to say. He is considered the very front runner for the Republican Party. The next best candidate based on polls would be Florida Governor Republican Ron DeSantis. Here, take a listen.
The world was at peace, America was prospering, and our country was on track for an amazing future because I made big promises to the American people, and unlike other presidents, I kept my promises. I kept them. Thank you very much. Under our leadership, we were a great and glorious nation, something you haven't heard for quite a long period of time. We were a strong nation, and importantly, we were a free nation. But now we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. For millions of Americans, the past 2 years under Joe Biden have been a time of pain, hardship, anxiety, and despair. As we speak, inflation is the highest in over 50 years. Gas prices have reached the highest levels in history and expect them to go much higher now that the strategic national reserves, which I filled up, have been virtually drained in order to keep gasoline prices lower just prior to the election. Joe Biden has intentionally surrendered our energy independence. There is no longer even a thought of dominance, and we are now begging for energy help from foreign nations, many of whom find us detestable. Our southern border has been erased, and our country is being invaded by millions and millions of unknown people, many of whom are entering for a very bad and sinister reason. And you know what that reason is. We will be paying a big price for this invasion into our country for years to come. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of deadly drugs, including very lethal fentanyl, are flooding across the now open and totally porous southern border. The blood-soaked streets of our once great cities are cesspools of violent crimes, which are being watched all over the world as leadership of other countries explain that this is what America and democracy is really all about. How sad. The United States has been embarrassed, humiliated, and weakened for all to see. The disasters in Afghanistan, perhaps the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, where we lost lives, left Americans behind, and surrendered $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment anywhere in the world. And Ukraine, which would have never happened if I were your president.
So you can let me know your thoughts here on this, but former President Donald Trump officially announces his candidacy for 2024. So unless something happens here, it looks like it'll be former President Donald Trump versus current President Biden. Biden hasn't officially announced that he will run again in 2024. Um, but it is kind of what we think is going to happen. But it's still 2 years, so who knows what will happen here. In that time, we will see here. Both Biden and Trump will be the oldest presidents ever, no matter who wins. No matter who wins. So you guys can let me know your thoughts on that. That's if either of them wins. There could be somebody else that potentially overtakes them. Overtakes them. You guys can let me know your thoughts in there. Maybe somebody new comes in and is able to overtake them. However, on the Republican side, almost every single poll that we have seen has Trump as the leader. I don't think I've seen a single poll where where somebody was beating Trump when they had the polls. At least now. I mean, 2 years is a long time though. Um, so you can let me know your thoughts here. Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, seems to be in second, but most of the time he's quite a ways away. And Trump's already already bashing him. So I mean, you could let me know your thoughts here. Yeah. So let me know what you think here. So I'll keep you up to date here. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button down below. It's just literally crazy what's going on here. I, I don't even know. Trump says that the war wouldn't have happened, but again, me being just kind of neutral, just thinking about this, I don't think that Putin really would have not attacked Ukraine because of what Trump thinks. Just trying to think of this completely neutral and honest. I mean, remember that Putin took over Crimea, which is really a lower portion of Ukraine back in 2014, and he didn't care what the U.S. thought then. So they literally just took that over in 2014, and again, they didn't care what the U.S. thought then. So now they've invaded Ukraine again, basically, a few years later, and then held these elections, which the United Nations, voted on, and it was like 98% of the United Nations, 98% or 99% of the United Nations, the world, only four of the countries of the whole world out of like 200 voted with Russia. It was like Russia and Syria and Belarus and North Korea and like one other one voted with Russia and said, "Oh yeah, we think the elections that happened were legitimate." So all the other countries, there was like some countries that didn't vote, they abstained, and there was like 100 and some countries that said, "Yeah, we don't think the elections are legitimate." But even so, Russia basically annexed like 15% of Ukraine and said, "Oh well, this is now our territory. We're just gonna claim it as ours." And that's exactly what they did with Crimea, which was a part of Ukraine, and they took that over in 2014. And this is and they've now revealed twice, actually, by accident, that after they took Ukraine, which was what they hoped to do, they were then going to take over Moldova. Moldova. So again, I mean, I know that Trump wants to say that they wouldn't take over Ukraine, but remember they took over Crimea before in 2014. Again, so they don't really care what the U.S. thinks, because if they did, they wouldn't have taken over Crimea. So obviously they were just building up their military. Ukraine's a much bigger country. I mean, Crimea's tiny and Moldova's tiny. Ukraine, I mean, look at how big Ukraine is. They're literally like, they were winning the war and now they're losing the war. I mean, Ukraine had 45 million people when the war started, and about, several million people fled, mostly women and children. But they're losing the war. So obviously they took some time to build up their military, build up their supplies, build up their missiles and stuff like that. So obviously they needed time to do that. And they're still, at least at this point, losing the war. So, I mean, I get that everybody has their own theory and might think that or not, but I mean, clearly they don't care what the US thinks or what anybody else in the world thinks, to be honest, because they're literally just doing whatever they want to do. So, let me know your thoughts here in the comments, and I'll keep you up to date here with everything going on here in our country on a daily basis. Don't forget, we're also giving away money here on a daily basis as well with our trivia questions. I'll have a trivia question here for you later today, and if you can guess it, you could win money directly from me. So make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon after you subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, thanks so much for hitting the like button for us as well. You can click here to watch my newest video next, and you can click here to see my newest video about checks that are going out to Americans that you might not even know about. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.